The war in Ukraine has changed the world. And now we need to think about where this world is moving to, together. That's why MIM Business School is launching the nationwide educational project Reinforce UA, where the world's greatest minds will share their ideas and insights. And you will get their experience, change your perspective, and discover what changes should the business be ready for, before and after the victory. Every week on reinforceua.com.
Good evening, or good afternoon, or whatever. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, both in Ukraine and worldwide. I'm Vyacheslav Pokatillo, and on behalf of MIM Kyiv Business School, welcome you on Reinforce UA project. This project was designed in order to inspire Ukrainian business community and invite famous intellectuals to present their views and their thoughts about problems the humanity facing for now. We have this project supported and happened due to the courageous support of Bogdan Havrilishin Family Foundation, 50 Thinkers organizations, and 3 major business education associations, AACVSB, AMBA, and IFMD. We are very grateful for everybody who donated funds when registering to this project. And I remind you that all money will be directed to support Ukrainian temporary displaced women who would like to start their own businesses. Their session, as everything, will be recorded and will be available video later on YouTube and on other channels. But today it's online, and we shall have possibility to ask questions at the end of presentation to our guest today. For this purpose, I kindly ask you to use Q&A button rather than a chat. And now I have a honor to present you Nicholas Coutts, a visiting tutor in service design at the Royal College of Art in UK, an expert in design, development, and marketing services. Has developed tool processes and services that help companies go to market more effectively and efficiently, and organization to maximize the value of their resources, people, time, and equipment. Mr. Coutts worked in IBM, responsible for channels and business partner management, and then as a vice president of global distribution channel. In this role, he was responsible and worked with thousands of employees of Salesforce, and then dozens of thousands of partners of IBM. His current education roles include visiting lecturers at Imperial College and many other business schools in the world. And with this, I have a pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. Coutts and to give you the floor.
Thank you indeed for that very generous welcome. And it's a great honor for me to be able to participate in your program. Very happy to have questions at any time. And we will share the slides and the resources that I have prepared as well. So, in sharing my screen, I think this is a terrific program, and I'm very happy to help raise funds for displaced women. I think there is also a long-term challenge as well, probably, for displaced people who are not temporary and actually find that they will remain in the long run. So what I'm really interested in doing is helping such people create their own employment by starting businesses and then helping to employ other people. And hopefully some of what I say may be useful for that. So I'm talking today about routes to market, which is the bridge between you and your customer. And why me? Why should I talk about this? Well, at IBM, my team built the process, tools, and methods that the brands use to get products and services to market. And I learned from that good process tends to help with good outcomes. And as life cycles of products and services get shorter and shorter, you need to be able to operate quickly. And so a good process will support that. And so we built the process called routes to market, which was about the resource allocation through the buying cycle of acquiring customers and retaining customers through all the different channels. And you mentioned the field force. We have 6,000 people in our direct sales force, 400 web portals for partners, customers and brands, 48,000 business partners. And so we had to be able to prove we were using our resources, allocating our time and money as effectively as possible by the stage in the buying cycle, by product, by segment, by geography. We built a digital twin of the business in order to be able to do that. Since then, I've worked with about 300 startups in different countries. And in the UK, we took 11 student projects from the Innovation Design Engineering Master's course, which is a joint course between Imperial College London and the Royal College of Art. We put about £600,000 of public money over 4 years with some grant funding, and today the 6 out of the 11 projects that have survived have a valuation of about 65 million. And very quickly from top left to right, using phase change materials for air quality, a pull-out screen for infection control and privacy in hospitals, a water misting spray for domestic fire control, and then in the middle row, we have a machine for roasting coffee in your kitchen from green beans. This means we can disrupt the supply chain and bypass the importer, roaster, and retailer and send about 5 to 10 times the amount of cash back to the farmer in Africa. To the right, there are 2 orange robots which fold sheets of metal like origami paper using advanced design software, which lets the designer control the robots. And then along the bottom, we have a keyboard cast in silicon, which allows you to bend and shape notes, a waterless toilet, which packages human waste into a biodegradable film package, which produces just methane gas and fertilizer. And I've had pasta cooked on gas produced from that lavatory. And today there are 1.2 billion people on this planet with no access to sanitation. Water problems, as you know, are getting worse and worse. So being able to provide much, much more sanitation without water is a good development. Then a fabric dress sprayed from a can. Then we have a smaller, more convenient folding plug for the UK plug. And finally, a hat made of wood, machined by computer, which folds flat. So these are just some of the startups that I've been working closely with over the past few years. And today I'm in Missouri in southern India at the Infosys campus, where we are running another iteration of our Unleash program, which is designed to help young people create solutions for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. To date, we've put about 4,900 young people from 167 different countries and created 330 solutions. And today in Missouri, we had 7,000 applicants from the Indian continent, and we've selected 1,000 of those to develop a new set of solutions. So my interest is to making sure that these startup companies survive, because 58% don't survive more than the first 12 months. And large companies tend to use technology and innovations to reduce employment. And it's startups that create employment. So we need to be able to make sure the startups survive, because today we have almost 3 million young people unemployed across Europe, and we need to get them into productive work. Otherwise, they're not developing their competence and the skill gap is increasing. Very quickly, my first computer, a 4-bit computer on the left, a big advance to an 8-bit computer on the right, and now my latest toy, my fully electric motorbike, which is a sign of the future. When you have the slides, you'll see commentary and notes under the slides. And I've coded them with G for a short guide that I've written to describe the tool, T for tool, TP for template, and P for presentation. And I find giving startups small, simple tools helps them organize data and share the work. So what we have is potential value in the market. And how do we extract that value? This is the key point. Most organizations focus internally very heavily onto making the product or developing and fulfilling the service. But in fact, it's the external design of how you get to market, how you segment your customers, that allows you to understand where the value is and how you can extract it. And we can have good segmentation or not so good segmentation. We can have good technology and not so good technology, good process, not so good process. And an awful lot of companies put all the energy into developing the product and not nearly enough energy and intellectual rigor into understanding how they go to market. And that's the key point of my presentation today, is to provide ways of actually doing more rigorous work in how we go to market. And we start with the segmentation. And if you have an effective method, you will see clearly the opportunity in each segment. If you don't have an effective management method, you will not be able to uncover all the potential value that's there. And you may use a different method of segmentation for a different segment or for a different objective. So understanding that your method of segmentation is appropriate is very important. So having the appropriate tool will help you identify where the value is. And what is important here is the time that it takes to do that, because the closer you are to real time, then the more accurate your segmentation is going to be. And there is a whole new development of service science around real-time value. An example of a segmentation using data mining shows 6 segments from 29% of the population down to 12% of the population. And the point about segmentation, that we find common characteristics in one segment that do not appear in any other segment. So here, if you look at segment which is 13% of the total, the distribution in the population as a whole is shown on the outside of the circle, and inside of the circle, that's the distribution within the segment. So you can see how that segment compares to the population as a whole. And it's really challenging. I haven't yet fully understood why managers in marketing really haven't got to grips with applying this sort of rigor to much of the work that they do. So we have different segments. We can have rich segments, we can have poor segments, and our strategy might be different in the different segments. There's very little there are only three things we can fundamentally do. We can choose either to acquire, what is the propensity to acquire customers in one segment. If there is no propensity to acquire, which would be to grow share, to increase sales, we would then think about retaining customers in the segment and what are all the activities we could do to retain the customers. And in other cases, there may not be any opportunity at all, so we might just then want to minimize our expense to revenue. So the different strategies for different segments would probably mean different routes to market. And a key part of this is to prioritize the markets, prioritize the segments. A simple example of using an Excel tool to identify the size and the attractiveness and the risk of different segments. So we're looking for what are the potential sales in the segment, what are the actual sales in the segment, what is the cash flow in the different segments, in order to be able to extract the value properly. And so we think about what is the appropriate route, and a good rule is to use a lower cost route for a lower value transaction or a lower value segment, or a higher cost route to a higher value transaction or segment. And this is the simple process by which we do this. So this is a route we take, and it depends on your preference as a consumer. So think about a favorite product. How do you become aware of the product? Well, maybe you've received a call from the call center. Then you're interested, so you go to a local retailer to look at the product, to handle it, to see the quality. You go back to the web to gather some more information and you decide to purchase. You go back to the retailer to purchase, and then you might receive service and support. That is one route to market out of a total of 2,880 different routes. You have a 4x5 matrix, so you have 4 factorial by 5 factorial. And we all know in our own experience as consumers that the experience often fails. And the main reason why it fails is because the handover between the different channels, so the handover from the call center to the retailer, isn't well designed. The retailer doesn't know what the customer is being told in the call center, and the call center is not aware of the offers that the retailer is making. And this is a management issue that you find senior professionals, senior managers who can manage a mobile channel, can manage a retailer channel or a business partner channel, very good at call centers or very good at web channels. It's very hard to find a senior manager who understands and has managed several channels and is therefore able to integrate them and put together this multi-channel, sometimes called omni-channel management, which is so important for making sure that we have a good customer experience. Because for many brands, the long-term differentiator is the customer experience. And for some brands, it will be the only long-term differentiator will be the customer experience. So this becomes a critical competence for the organization. And that's one of the reasons why service design has grown in importance in recent years. So how do we create awareness? We can look at all the different ways we create awareness. And then we move, excuse me, to interest. We develop the interest, and then we act to get the customer to decide Once they've decided to buy, we then want them to complete the purchase. And because this hasn't been properly designed in so many brands, the customer falls out of the process. 80% of the time, the customer stops because they've lost trust and confidence. They haven't found the information at the right time or in the right way, which will make them decide to purchase. So we have to put the new correct amount of resource into this. And part of this is that the touch points, the cost of using the call center to make someone aware could be, say, typically $50. The reseller, the retailer, the business partner is rewarded through margin. The web might be 5 cents as a cost of touch point. Again, the retailer is paid through margin, and the mobile might be another $5 or 5 cents to provide the support call. So you can add that together, and therefore you can begin to see the cost of your route to market and understand whether that cost is going to be too high or too low for that particular segment. So without systems to support this, it's very difficult to maintain the dynamic and make sure you're as close to real time as you could be in order to have an accurate segmentation. And the segmentation is changing because as we experience the route to market, our expectations change, our requirements change, and our preferences change. So after using the call center for one product, I might increase my awareness. So how we track these changes of preference is really important. And this is why IoT, Internet of Things, can really help us a lot in seeing how preferences change in terms of location, in terms of frequency, in terms of direction. We can capture a whole range of data types, which we haven't been able to capture before. And then providing the support for that is important for retention and important for the experience that drives word of mouth, which is a very effective form of marketing. So we plan this and we track it and make sure that we are as close to real time as possible. And we use the feedback from that to continually improve the process. So we find out how well this is going. We use the feedback to continually improve, but very few marketing departments have actually implemented quality management systems that would ensure a good experience for the customer through the buying cycle. So I'm just going to check and see if there are any Q&A so far. No open questions.
I would start with a question, Mr. Coutts, if you wouldn't mind. We have some, let's say, which appeared before this session. First, me check. We are going to discuss. You will have another continuation of your presentation, or
it would be good to get some feedback, and then I will continue some more.
Okay, I understood. Let me do question, because what appeared in my head, because you use the words value extraction, which means that value exists and then you need to extract it. Quite often, I'm not an expert in marketing particularly, but quite often I hear the value creation, which means that company create value and bring it to customers. I would like hearing your comments on this difference, because it seems to me that you use this extraction not arbitrary and with a certain sense.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I think we're in very important transition where we move from a hierarchical command and control organization, which is about the producer efficient supply chain, which is cost minimization, it's siloed, it's linear. But now things are changing. We're moving towards the customer effective demand network. And it's a different form of organization. It's much more to do with the leader creating context and maintaining context and letting the managers decide the best way to fulfill the customer requirements. For me, I understand this as the fact that it's much easier to manage costs than to manage value. If I say my phone costs 400 euros, most of you will know exactly what I mean. But if I say my phone is very easy to recycle, the mental models that you create could be largely different. There's a simple explanation for this because cost has two coordinates, so it's in flat space, so you can add cost together without error. But any value such as ease of use or reliability, each value has a different set of coordinates. It's usually at least 3 coordinates, and therefore it's not flat space, it's in curved space, so you can't add them without errors. In short, what this means is that the CEO is going to be likely to be much more effective managing cost because the organization understands cost. And it's very hard to manage value, and very few organizations have tools and techniques to actively manage value. And in many products and services, it's the customer who decides value at the point of purchase. It's theory of revealed preference. So I think we have to move now to managing value because cost minimization means we produced a forecast. We tend to overproduce because we got the forecast wrong and therefore we sell at a discount. So managing value is about producing on demand. There is no waste. The customer gets what they want. And it requires a change in every single business process to move from cost minimization to value maximization. It'd be very interesting to understand what business schools are doing to provide managers with tools and methods for managing value.
Okay, my second question is about segmentation. Which particular criteria for segmentation would you recommend using for companies?
That's very good question. Do you know what's your favorite brand at the moment? Think of any brand, doesn't really matter. Just what's your favorite brand?
You mean my personal brand?
Yes, yes. Just.
Well, I'm very old-fashioned, I don't believe it always brands, but, I buy milk quite often, and therefore I have the favorite brand in Ukraine because I know students who manage this particular company.
Good. Thank you. So most of the major brands will hold at least 1,000 data points about you for each different brand you buy. And they scrape all of the major websites in the world overnight and refresh their data 24 hours by 24 hours. And they will see which of the 1,000 data points are changing, and they will infer using artificial intelligence and machine learning what you're likely to do next, and therefore formulate an incentive, an offer, a voucher, whatever, to get you to purchase again. So it's a question of the people with the most data and the most accurate data closest to real time win. But the reason why the brand is so important, and I'm very happy to be contentious and to be challenged, is that it raises my switching costs. If I like a brand, I'm not going to switch to another brand and take a risk of having a disappointing experience. And this is why major brands spend more and more money on a good customer experience to actually reduce switching.
Okay, we don't have particular questions. I mean, one is formulated not in the appropriate way. So if you would have anything else to add, please continue, and then we'll come back to the questions.
Thank you. So an example of applying the segmentation to the routes to market. So we take the 6 segments, we have 6 routes. We have our initial planned revenue, our upper and lower constraints on revenue which are needed. And then we run linear programming, and we can set 3 objectives. And my belief that these are the only 3 objectives that managers can set. We can either, as I said earlier, set an objective to maximize revenue, which is acquisition and growing share. We can maximize profit, or we can minimize expense to revenue. That's all you can do. But if you have a digital model of the business, what you can do is you can quickly and very cheaply run multiple different scenarios. And what we're doing here is combining internal data from accounting systems with external data from research systems, and by scraping these enormous large data sets from Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and others who make significant money by selling those data sets. So I have a question: can I explain the difference between extracting value from product and creating value? So yeah, so you can create a product such as, I've used the mobile phone, and that in itself, the design creates option value. We have different designs, different specifications of mobile phones, and the value to society of designers is that designers actually create real options, what economists call real options. And the value of those options change over time. And what changes the value of an option is information. So we design the product, we design it with large screens for people maybe who have eyesight difficulties. That's a design option, and it has value for one segment and less value for another segment. So in that way, we can create value. But if we don't distribute the product properly, we don't make very many sales. And this is what happened to Nokia. They really didn't spend very much time designing their distribution channels. So we have set up kinetic potential value in the design and the manufacture of the product. But if we're not distributing it, getting it to the customers through the right channels in the right time, in the right way, we don't extract the value. And for me, that's a pretty good example. It gives me also the opportunity to say why is service design becoming so important. It's because the design of the service impacts the return on the assets. If you have an oil rig, design, management, maintenance of that oil rig are all services. If the services are well designed, return on assets go up. Same with your mobile phone. I know that my phone has a set of services, a set of apps in it, which are not the same as yours. You put in apps that add value to the phone, and if a better designed app comes along, you delete one and you replace it. And so there's this constant cycle whereby redesign of services maintains and improves value. That's why service design is so important. So that's an example of pretty straightforward optimization technique of optimizing resource allocation by segment and route to market. We did this for IBM PCCO. This example here is for an ethical pharmaceutical. So I've introduced the idea of service design and the importance of the user experience. And this relates to value in the sense that the value of the experience changes. It's very difficult to forecast how I would react. I often can't tell you. So we get into the areas of the theory of revealed preference, what I say I will do and what I actually do when I'm faced with buying something or using a service may well be different. I've just got to reorganize the page a little bit. The other, excuse me, the other reason why segmentation is so important is that if you have good segmentation, you can get good targeting. You send the right message in the right channel at the right time. What happens if you do that? Well, with good targeting, you actually get a higher response rate. And if you have a higher response rate, then your cost of acquisition is likely to be lower. So this is why spending time on messaging is critically important. One way of doing this is to use the service blueprint. And here's an example. Actually, it's an example from a business selling academic courses online. So we talked about the stages in the buying cycle through awareness. So here is the awareness stage plotted as a service blueprint. And you can see the long list of information by that vertical blue line on the right of all the things the customer needs to know in order to move from the awareness phase to the interest phase. So once we have the long list of information, we can then work out who does what at each stage in the process. And if you're familiar with service blueprinting, you'll know that typically the customer is shown in the swim lane across the top, and then the other functions are represented in the other swim lanes. So the moment of truth is when something touches a customer, and that's represented by these little red flashes. So we can then get the process right, to get the right information to the customer at the right time in the right way. That may vary by segment, because you can see the difference between using website and phone, using a partner site, using advertising, and so on. So this is how we combine the resources to ensure that we've designed a good customer experience. And Clive Grenier, who now runs the Service Design Masters in London, has a really good way of expressing it. Your customers are going to have an experience, so you may as well design it to be a good one. And it's very easy now to automate these service blueprints with robotic process automation RPA tools, such as UiPath or BonitaSoft. Once you've got the template, you can automate the process pretty quickly. And so we get to what I regard as the equation of business, which is customer lifetime value. For me, this is the most important thing. someone wants to spend more money on the website. Another one wants to employ 2 more salespeople. Whatever the option, we can look at the condition probability. What will be the impact on these elements of lifetime value? So we can quickly see whether we're going to get a better return on our investment if we increase the number of So good service design can help us improve the return on assets. And designers create real options. So useful book on real options. It's out of print at the moment, but it's a very simple explanation of using real options for valuing startups, using real options as a way of understanding resource allocation in business. As an economist, I'm pretty much interested in real options thinking. One of the key elements in designing the services is to understand the barriers to purchase and use, and how this relates to routes to market. So if I don't understand what the barriers to purchase and use are, how these are changing, how they vary by segment, I don't know how to act. And so it's important to understand the type of barrier in order to be able to remove it. So they'll not only vary by segment, they'll vary over time. So all the barriers, which could be technical barriers, political barriers, financial barriers, and most importantly, emotional barriers. Any of the barriers are removed by some sort of service. So we can avoid the barriers through using service design. It could be an information service, it could be a technical service, it could be a financial service, anything that we understand. And it's quite easy to find out what the barriers are. You can just ask the customer, what would make it difficult for you to buy and use my product or buy and use my service? So it's not a difficult thing to find out. And so we can develop the offer, packaging the product or the service with the services that are needed in order to remove the barriers. And so you need, again, to be close to real time as possible in order to understand the rate at which the barriers are changing and how they are changing. So here, the idea of a service supply chain, which allows you to continually replace or refresh services according to their life cycle, is necessary. And remember that service ships before product, with product, and after product. So the service supply chain design is a critical component as well, of service management. So we engineer our routes to market to extract the maximum value continually. And I talked a little bit about the service life cycle. And we need to know how long we're going to have through the life of the product. And typically what will happen is some aspect of commoditization. Now, not all products and services will be exposed to commoditization, but a large number will be, where they move from higher margin and lower volume when they initially enter the market over time to a higher volume and lower margin through price competition, through changes in price performance, through customer experience, and so on. And at IBM, what was happening was that the life of the products, before there was a change in price performance, was getting shorter and shorter. Typically, for a big server, which was could be easily 3 years before there was a significant change in price performance, you get down to the laptop, the ThinkPad, where there was a change in price performance every 3 to 4 months. And so you actually had about 6 weeks of high margin before being forced into pricing it as a commodity. So what's the relevance of innovation in this scenario? Well, we can use innovation to do two things. As commoditization increases, the returns to innovation are increasing as you replace labor with technology. And you'll remember that what I said at the beginning, that large companies tend to use technology to reduce employment, hence the importance of startups. But we can also use innovation to reduce wastage, to avoid commoditization. So we have this dichotomy that innovation is not always by any means a good thing, because it can drive commoditization as well as reduce it. So pretty simple to use this to understand the rate of commoditization, if that's what's happening, because all that's really going on is that unit value is rising less quickly than unit volume. And so by extrapolating that, and we all have these data from accounting, we can always account for, we have to legally account for volume and value that we can project forward. And that will tell us where we're going to be on the curve at any one point. And most businesses have a target margin in their business model, and you cannot really fall below that and survive. So this then tells us when we're going to have to refresh or replace a product or service, and therefore the amount of new margin we have to continually introduce to maintain value. And we do this in simple spreadsheet models like this. And we were tracking that for 77,000 SKUs every month and deciding when we would discontinue or refresh a product or service to maintain profitability. And my final point then is around funding of startups. And then I will close, which is that here at Unleash on Saturday, we will award 27 projects with prizes for their solutions for the UN SDGs, which is great. And it's really important. But they will, in effect, be suffering what I call the penicillin problem. I'm going to give you 6 weeks of penicillin. You need 6 weeks of penicillin, when in fact, I'm only going to give you 6 days. I know you're going to run out. I know I'm going to make you excited, get you started developing on your project, but you're going to run out of cash. And development will stop until you find some more cash. And I think this is actually unethical, because we're getting projects started without being able to continually fund them. So what we need to do, in fact, is to find ways of funding startups at scale and not this drip feeding of small amounts of money, which actually increases the rate of failure. So we have a question, which what is the most efficient measuring method of customer satisfaction score, CSAT score, in B2B, average business deal of 100,000. Customer satisfaction score is very, very interesting. I'm glad it hasn't been mentioned about Net Promoter Score, because I really think that's a misleading methodology. So customer satisfaction is incredibly important to track. It can be a very important indicator of customer future behavior. In fact, there are a couple of funds in America which invest purely on the results of customer satisfaction scores achieved by major brands. And they've been very successful using that as a tracking mechanism. The most efficient methods are ones that are going to be automatic, don't require intervention, and continually give you large amounts of data. I think you have to design your satisfaction method according to the nature of the product or service and the nature of the type of customers. And it's like developing an appropriate segmentation methodology. Your customers' satisfaction measures, the methodology has to be developed specifically for your objectives. I don't think there is any one particular effective method. I have some examples which I can share if you want to look into that some more. So if we do our good segmentation, if we do build our routes to market effectively, then we can extract value. What I'm really interested in is decisions made based on evidence, that we have proof that our segmentation method is effective, that we have proof that our customer satisfaction measures are effective, that we move management decision making away from assertion and assumption to being based on evidence. And then finally, all the resources we need are somewhere in the city: the funding, the people, the employees, the equipment, the support, the customers. But no one really knows where it is. So I have this vision that cities will start to run innovation as a public service in the city, because if these assets are used well, then employment will go up, and the return on the assets, often funded by the city, will improve as well. So we do maps of the innovation system to find out all the stakeholders and where all the resources are. And these maps are dynamic as well. So it's just getting the mix right.
Thank you very much. We have probably time only for one question. And I'm wondering which one to ask, as I'm not marketing person at all. And after a lecture, I even decided I will never go into start learning marketing. Sorry, it's complicated. It's too complicated for me, and too many data, etc. May I ask the following question? On your last but one slide, was it that the beneficiaries are people? And may just apply or address to your personal experience before. This lecture we discussed, you've been born in Scotland and lived for a long time, worked for many companies, sophisticated companies. Then during this life, marketing tools improved, started to be sophisticated, started to be very efficient in terms of extracting, creating, and all other possibilities of value and reducing costs, etc. What is your opinion, whether it's really made life of ordinary people in Scotland in the place where you lived better?
Depends on which products and which services. Some have made life better without shadow of a doubt, and others have made life worse. I personally will not spend any time working on anything to do with gambling or alcohol or tobacco or pet food or anything that is not beneficial. But I'm in a fortunate position that I can choose to do that. But it raises the question of teaching ethics in business schools. And we need to start teaching ethics to children at a much, much earlier age so that we don't have so much unethical practice in how we go to market in some of the products and services. I'm still amazed at how claims made by financial services and other companies are just so unrealistic and misleading.
Okay, I got it. But please eliminate alcohol from the list of forbidden marketing tools, because you are from a country which is based actually on an excellent alcohol, and whiskey is available, also very much branded. So on this point, I would like to thank you once more for your time and presentation, and remind our attendees that the Reinforce UA project is going on. We shall have a slight break in the future, I would announce for this holiday time. But our next lecture will be this week, not in the standard time on Friday, in standard time, but on Friday, and then we shall continue next week. So please check in your calendars and join us this time on Friday and next Wednesday. On Friday, we shall have a guest, Dory Clark. She's recognized as #1 communication coach in the world, and the author of the Long Game book and Entrepreneurial Year, and any other articles and presentations he teaches in business school. And we'll talk about communication as far as I could gather. So please join us. Mr. Coutts, thank you very much again for your presentation. You're in India, and we know that it's difficult to fly from London to India, and we are looking forward to meeting you once again, and hopefully next time in Ukraine. Hopefully next time you will be able to travel to us closer. Will be no such a tough situation here. So with all the best, I close today's session and see you on Friday.
The war in Ukraine has changed the world, and now we need to think about where this world is moving to, together. That's why MIM Business School is launching the nationwide educational project Reinforce UA, where the world's greatest minds will share their ideas and insights. And you will get their experience, change your perspective, and discover what changes should the business be ready for, before and after the victory. Every week on reinforceua.com.